Hi, this is Marco Pimentel. Welcome to the podcast, Someone Like You. In this first season, you'll discover founders, creators, entrepreneurs, and business owners who are passionate about creating business models with lasting, sustainable climate solutions.
In an ecosystem, there is no waste. Everything can be reused. Like everything that is considered to be waste from one organism is the food for the other one. And I think we should create this network of businesses in that same model because everything can be reused. The concept of waste doesn't exist.
Food waste. It's a massive global issue, both from a climate change perspective and a monetary perspective. For example, in Canada, we throw away about 50% of all of our food. In the US, nearly 1/3 of all the food misses our stomachs. That costs us over $400 billion and uses over 4 trillion liters of water. For reference, food waste accounts for over 8% of all greenhouse gas emissions, which is much higher than the aviation industry. So, why does all this happen? Why don't we just eat it all? Why is this such a big problem? Isn't this easy to solve? Well, these questions and a host of others had me intrigued. And that brings me to this week's episode. Joining us is Julie Poitras-Saulnier, the CEO and co-founder of Loop Mission, a circular economy company based in Montreal aimed to reduce food waste by giving rejected fruits and veggies a second life. This is done by repurposing these unwanted fruits and veggies into juices and smoothies, probiotic sodas, beers and gin, handcrafted soaps, and more. In short, Loop Mission is a food waste fighting powerhouse with the ambitious goal of eventually getting every food manufacturing business to source raw ingredients and materials through a circular economy model, which would create a lasting positive impact on the environment. Julie and her partner and co-founder David Côté both worked in the food industry, and with that experience and their deep passion for the planet, they launched Loop Mission together. Here is my conversation with Julie. Julie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm very excited for the conversation. Obviously, food waste is a huge issue and it's very complicated. So I'm hoping we can dive into this complicated conversation. But before we do that, I would love to really understand what your background is. I understand that you have a background in sustainability and food industry, but what's your background before and how is that related to Loop Mission and how did you make that transition?
I actually started my career in like communication, cinema, television. And it's weird because I always had thought that this was really my passion and I was like the one following its passion, even though like I was super good in mathematics and sciences, but like, no, I'm going to follow this like lead of being an artist. And then I started working in that industry and I realized that it was not really aligned with like my who I was as a person and my core value. And then it just happened one day that I saw like an article in a paper about a new program. It was a new master in environmental sciences and sustainability. And I just decided to jump in and start that like part-time while I was still working in communication. And it went so clear for me that it was just this was my X. Like when I started this master, even though I didn't study in sciences before, like I was like super good at it, and I had like A+ in all my classes, which was not necessarily the way I was. And then I realized that when you really do what you're truly passionate about, like there is no way that it doesn't work, and it doesn't way that you don't perform because you're really. This is like I was listening to the teachers, I was just there all the time, and this is really like. For me, that was a big teaching because it was also something that I applied when I started Loop Mission, is that the fact that even though I was super afraid of being an entrepreneur and starting my own business, at the moment as I realized that this was really my passion and I was really doing that with full of like 100% of my art, like there is no way that wouldn't work.
And did you, from that education, did you go straight into founding Loop Mission?
Now, after that, as I was working as a sustainability specialist in the food industry. So food has always been my passion, as well as the environment. So I really wanted to work in food. So I was helping companies implementing sustainability, like in their businesses, basically. But it was really frustrating for me in many ways because first, sustainability was mostly seen as an expense and not necessarily something that would bring value to the company. It was really about how we do, like, how do we reduce our environmental impact, how we do less bad instead of more good. And it was always the budget that was the first cutoff. If like the companies had a rough period or something, it was always like the positions that were considered as less important. Or so it was super hard for me to convince leadership teams of really the value of sustainability. And my dream was to create a business that the more you sell of something, the better it is for the world. And that is really like sustainability is embedded in the model. So while I was working in sustainability, I was always like thinking of businesses, project that I could start, always with that concept and that model. And I wanted that business to be almost like a case study so that I could show the industry and I could show like these leadership teams that I was working for in the past that it actually works, and it sustainability has value, and it's the way we should build business going forward, and that it's also something that can help you move and grow.
Yeah, as you said, people think about sustainability as something that they have to do as an after effect, not part of their the core business, and how that could actually help. And so I guess one thing to talk about is what is Loop Mission, and I guess from there you kind of said what drove you to start it, but how did you come up with the idea, and how did you start it, and what is Loop Mission? You co-founded it with David Côté. So just to understand your mind and your thought about, you had this idea, you're in this industry, you saw sustainability to be more focused in the core identity of a business and a brand. So how did that all lean towards creating Loop Mission?
So I was at that place in my life where I really wanted to start a business, but I was super afraid, as I mentioned before. And we got a phone call from David and I. We got a phone call from Frédéric Monette, which is the VP operations at Courchain Larose. It's the most important produce distributor in Canada. And he called David because he just heard about David from his like gym trainer, basically. And he, because David was a bit known already in the food industry because he co-founded also Crudescence, which is a raw vegan food chain with 9 addresses in Quebec. And he co-founded Rice Kombucha, which is the number one kombucha company in Canada. And he said, he called us saying that he was throwing away about 20 tons of fruits and vegetables every single day. 20 tons every day. So that's
Wow.
shocking. And that was the aha moment. That was the moment that we, like David and I, we like when we met, we fell in love. We're like, okay, we want to start a business together. We're so alike. We need to start that project. And then Frédéric called us and like, okay, let's go. This is the project. So we went there. We visited his warehouse. We saw all the skids, like perfect fruits and vegetables, but just they were ripe, or they would be ripe like in 3-4 days, and that's already too late for the industry. So or so many different reasons, like an apple that is too small, or all these reasons that we reject food. So we saw these kids, and I was already super like conscious about food waste. I was like, I couldn't throw away something in my own fridge. I was kind of obsessed with managing my fridge. And then we saw these kids, and a full wall, like a very high wall full of pallets. And I was like, this is going to the landfill today. And tomorrow we're going to fill it again, and we're going to send that to the landfill. And I realized the impact of the industry. I realized how just by changing the industry, we can have a huge impact, and not only have an impact like from consumers, because we know most of the time when we hear about food waste, it's a lot about consumer. Our consumers can change their habits to reduce their waste at home, but there is so much waste in the industry. Actually, 79% of food waste comes from the industry. So when we saw that, we decided to make a project. So the idea from the beginning was to do circular economy. So circular economy is like it's more known now, so people know circular economy, but basically it's just the concept of reusing instead of like just creating something and discarding it. So it's a way of connecting businesses together so that the leftovers or the everything that is rejected by a company can become an ingredient or the raw material for the other company. So basically, it's thinking businesses the way ecosystems are built. Like in an ecosystem, there is no waste. Everything can be reused. Like everything that is considered to be waste from one organism is the food for the other one. And I think we should create this network of businesses in that same model, because everything can be reused. The concept of waste doesn't exist. And because when we the model was that, it was that really we take these fruits and vegetables that are discarded, and we transform it into cold pressed juices. So we press it, and then we reuse our own waste, which is all the leftover fiber and pulp from juicing, to make other products also. So we had the vegan dog treats, and then along the way we developed also new products with that pulp. But the concept from the beginning was it. And at the same time, the idea with it was to create a product that is more sustainable for consumers without compromise. Because we've been like, as a consumers, when we buy like sustainable products, most of the time it's either more expensive or there is some compromise that we need to make as a consumers. It's always like, okay, this one is like the right choice, but at the same time it's more expensive. But with that business model, what's interesting is that because we take food that is usually considered rejected and we use that as an ingredient, we pay less for a product, so we can create a juice, a cold press juice. We were huge fans of cold press juice, but it's so expensive because it's like 1.5 kilos of fruits and vegetables in one single bottle. So we were like, okay, we're going to create that model that we pay less, so we can offer a product to the consumer that is more affordable. And so we're the lowest cold press juice on the market. So it's also a way to ensure premium clean label products are more affordable for everybody.
Yeah, and I'd love to just get into food waste, because obviously we have somebody like yourself on the show, and we see it in the grocery stores. We hear about, fruits and vegetables that might be not imperfect, but the problem is obviously, my understanding is quite large, as in, I think they say something like food waste, if it was a country, it'd be like the third worst polluter in the world. And understanding, where does food waste exist, and how do we, I guess, solve it? Where does food waste really exist? Like these are the core problems in the industry. So is it in, all the energy used to grow, and then it just, it's left in the field because we can't get people to bring it? Is it because we export or import too many products? Is it sitting in warehouses because grocery stores need to look really pretty with lots of food, and that's where the core of the waste is? Or is it when we sit it in our home? Or is it, obviously it's a combination of everything? But I just love to just understand a little bit more about kind of the food waste problem, because it is such a massive one.
Yeah, I would say all these answers, but honestly, there is food that is wasted at every single step. So, like from the farm to importers, distributors, retailer, consumers, we waste at every single steps, and that's also for many reasons. First, as a consumers, we're super picky about like the look or the aesthetic we want from our fruits and vegetables. Like I was saying, an apple that is too small. It's an example that we have most of the time. Like when an apple is too small, consumers won't pick it on the shelves. We also have oranges that have scars or little dots on the outside, but the fruit is super good in the inside. But consumers won't pick this one in the grocery stores. Like for example, watermelon. We had an example recently of watermelon that they were all dark green on the inside, and buyers from grocery stores won't buy it because they were like, okay, but if I buy this watermelon, it's gonna sell like half of the watermelon with stripes on it. So people want a watermelon with the grain that is light and then dark green, and so really a striped watermelon, and you'll sell twice the amount of watermelons in grocery stores they want to sell. So first, there is this aesthetic reason that is important, but also the fact that food comes from all around the world now. And that creates also a lot of waste comes because it can have some issues in transportation. The temperature is not set the right way. Your cantaloupe would come here and you'll have it will have ripe a little bit in transportation, and it was like at a pace that it wasn't supposed to. And it's also a lot of speculation. It's like having a restaurant. If you have a restaurant, you don't necessarily know how much you're going to sell on the menu. It depends. If it's super sunny outside, you might sell more salad. It's more cold, you might sell more soups, for example. But you don't want at the end of the week that half of your menu is still available. You want consumers to be able to like have choices, and you want to like, your restaurants to be full. So you always need this little buffer of like 5% on everything to ensure like if the salad is super popular this week, you'll have enough for everybody. And it's the same thing when you're a huge distributor or an importer. You know you sell an average of 6 containers of grape per week, but you don't want your clients to come and say I want 7 containers and you only have 6, because they won't buy 6 from you and 1 from another. They're gonna buy like the 7 with another supplier. So because of all these reasons, there is waste because you need this little buffer, and when you're huge distributors, this represents tons and tons per days. And the fact that like food comes from all around the world, of course there is more like suppliers all around the way, and this creates this little buffer and this little extra all year long. Plus last reason I'll say that is also super important is the fact that we always want everything on the shelves of grocery stores. We don't want to come in and we want to buy peppers and there is no pepper right now. So we need to have everything all the time. So because of that, it also creates some waste, because sometimes it might not be possible to have it at a specific moment.
Yeah, yeah. There's many different facets of why food waste exists, and when you decided to, so you got a phone call. From a friend in the industry, we have a crazy amount, 20 tons per day of waste. You have experience in the food industry. You want to build out a brand or a business in sustainability, and so you create Loop Mission with the goal to take that waste, create a circular economy product. How do you do it? Do you take all the waste, bring it in, and you start to create a brand and you start to create a product line? Like, how did you go from this phone call and this idea and there's this problem to getting products onto shelves?
First, I sold everything. I had to. So I sold my house. I quit my job, and then I decided to just jump in the project. And it was really challenging at the beginning because this was one of the main, like, we had two main fears when we started the project. First, are consumers going to understand the concept? Because maybe people would think like, oh, that's a nice initiative, but like, is the food still good for consumption? Like, what is going to be that barrier in terms of consumers? And plus, are we going to be able to manage like all the supplies that are not consistent, that are really like depends what's available in the market? Because we needed recipes to be always the same, because grocery stores expect your recipes to like be stable. So we started with really developing recipes based on what was available all year long in the industry. Because as crazy as it sounds, like these huge distributors and retailers, they have a forecast of what they're going to throw away in the next 2 years, because they know, like, even though like they are very good at managing like their inventory, they know that it's clementine season around this season, like we're gonna throw away this amount of clementine at this moment of the year. So we'll look at the data, we assess what was available in huge quantities all year long. So we really developed the recipes based on that. And that was really something important for us, because we like, even though like most of the time when you're in the food industry and you want to develop a juice, you're going to look at Nielsen data, you're going to see what's trendy now, what consumers want. And it's going to be, oh, it's strawberry, so let's develop a strawberry juice. But with our model, we cannot think it this way. We need to develop the product based on what's available. So we went from with that data, we developed the recipes, and then we found a co-packer, because we at the beginning we weren't sure if consumers were embarked in that journey. So we found a co-manufacturer that could like really press the juices for us and bottle it, so we wouldn't have to invest in a factory. So we started this way, but we really realized super quickly that our model like wasn't well set up for this type of partnership, because like we had, I don't know, we got phone calls from, I remember that example because that really happened after like a couple months like developing the project. We had the phone calls, we had 50 pallets of grapes that we needed to juice, but we only had 5 days to juice it. But we have a specific moment in the schedule of the co-manufacturer that he would have for us to manufacture our juices. So we had a lot of opportunities like that we couldn't seize, of produce that was like short shelf life, but like we had a specific moment that we could produce. So the model didn't work with that. So we realized really quickly that it's either that we build our own factory or we have to stop the project, because it was really complex to manage that and all these inconsistencies with a partner like that. So we, at the same moment, we were asking that question, but we didn't have enough money to build a facility. So we got a grant from the Quebec government to help reduce food waste, a $400,000 grant that helped us buy some equipment, build our own factory, and then it's how it started. And it worked, because with that model we realized like how we can manage the logistics and juice some of the items at specific moment where they're optimal, and then we can mix and match the recipes and ensure we can work it this way. But it's still really challenging to do it this way. But yeah, that's the path we followed.
Yeah, own the factory to be able to have your quality control, be able to take in the products, to be more nimble and responsive to, obviously the market demands, and being able to grow that. So it seems like the right decision to do that. Once you get the food, fruits and vegetables, what type of products are you currently creating, and what products did you started with juices, but my understanding is that you got into other products as well. So what products are available, and what did you start with?
So we really started with the cold pressed juices, and at the time the name of the company was Loop Juices. And but from day one, we were three partners in the project, and I was like, we can't be Loop Juices, because I know someday we're gonna have all these different types of products. But we decided to go this way, because like loop is like a word that is really often used, and like, okay, we need something else to differentiate ourselves. But then we got so many phone calls when we launched the project. We had a lot of media coverage, and it's crazy, like we realized that there was really a need for a company like us that buy food that is rejected, because there was nobody. And it was the companies were looking for solution, because they pay a lot of money to get rid of these fruits and vegetables. It costs a lot of money just because you need to send it to the landfill or compost sites, and this is super expensive. Plus you throw away like millions of dollars in value on food. And the model is called circular economy, so there is the word economy in it. And in this model we buy it, so we buy the fruits and vegetables that they usually pay to get rid of, and we transform it into something that really has value for them. So everybody started to call us, because they wanted to partner with us. They wanted to develop products together, so we could find a way to upcycle what they were throwing away. And so we decided to rebrand and to go from Loop Juices to Loop Mission. And then we launched different types of products with that same model. So we have now beers that are made with Deho bread from bakeries. We also have a gin made with potato cuttings from a chips factory. So it's the crispy corner chips factory, like all the little pieces that are too small to bake into like a chip. Like consumers want like a big potato chips. So when they're too small little pieces, it's just being discarded in the process. So we distill it and we transform it into a gin. We even push the concept further away by developing a soap made with recycled cooking oil from a vegan fast food chain. So it's basically like falafel oil. So we're like, okay, how are we gonna convince people to wash themselves with a soap made with falafel oil? But I reassure you, it smells amazing, because in the process of saponification, it really transforms it, and it's actually like sunflower organic oil that they change every 72 hours. So it has so much. It's still such a good product. So we transform that into soaps. We also have probiotic sodas that upcycled hydrosol, which is a byproduct of the essential oil industry. Super potent, like infused water that is used in the making of essential oil. That we reuse to flavor our probiotic sodas. And now we recently launched a line of cookies that are made with three leftover ingredients. So that was like a challenge we put ourselves to, is to create a product with as many different types of upcycled ingredient in it. So we have in these cookies all the spare grain from the production of our beers. So it's a mix of different types of grains that is used to ferment the beer that we reuse in our cookies, plus the leftover pulp and fiber from our juicing. So we have beet pulp, carrot pulp, and things like that. And then we have also hemp seeds, little little pieces of hemp seeds that are discarded in the process because they're too small and do not conform to all the specs. So this is also a new project, and so many other projects coming in the pipeline. Also, like it's always when someone calls us, we look at, okay, can we do something out of it? And then this is the way we decide what we launch. We never see, okay, we want to launch a gin. It's always comes from someone calling us saying, I throw away this amount of food. And then every time we're like, okay, we're going to slow down. We have so much work. We should not launch a new project. And then someone calls us and we need to do something about it. We need to find a way to ensure this food that is super good for consumption isn't thrown away.
Every week on Someone Like You, we dive into stimulating conversations with founders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and the likes who are consciously and successfully creating sustainable business solutions for the long haul. Tune in every week for a new inspiring conversation on leading climate solutions. And if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget, please subscribe on the platform of your choice and give us a rating and a review. Yeah, and I was going to ask around the supply side. Is it an overwhelming amount of supply, as in, you consistently will have calls and there's just so much food waste and so much available? How does that typically happen? Do you find that as a problem, as a good thing for you, because you're trying to take all this supply and turn it into a product? But is there so much supply out there that it is quite overwhelming?
There is so much supply out there that it's easy to to lose track or to go in different directions. So we're trying to focus a bit more. We have a team now that tries to slow us down a bit, or just organize us around okay, thinking the project before, because there is so many opportunities. It's actually crazy the amount of food that it's 1/3 of the food that is wasted worldwide. So there is there is so much food available out there that we can upcycle. That with that realization, we recently decided to launch that new branch that is called Loop Synergies, and it's our new ingredient branch, because we realized that it's so big, this issue, that we can't solve it all but only ourselves. So we need to create more partnership. We need to facilitate or ensure that it's easy for any food manufacturer to integrate upcycled ingredients into their products. So it's challenging. As I said, there is a lot of challenges with working it inconsistent fruits and vegetables or short shelf life. So what this new project is really that we're going to take all this leftover food and we're going to transform it into ingredients that are stable, shelf stable, that are easy to use, that are consistent, and that we can sell to any food manufacturer as an ingredient, so they can just remove or switch what they currently use to use it with our ingredients. So, for example, a yogurt company that use strawberry puree to make its yogurt could just substitute this puree with our puree that is made with upcycled strawberries. And so this is a way for us to create a movement in the food industry and to exponentially increase the amount of food that we can rescue, because we don't have to launch everything ourselves. We can just create these ingredients and ensure that it's easier for big multinationals to use that as an ingredient.
Yeah, we had Felix Bach from Chop Value on the show, and the similar idea from a circular economy. He uses chopsticks out of all things to create wood furniture, coasters, shelves, you name it. And then they created micro factories, and the micro factories is his idea to we need to get this into more hands, and these micro factories kind of continue to grow. So it seems very similar. Loop mission being, this is for products for the consumer. This is our brand. This is what we own. But the overwhelming demand is there's just so much supply. How do we take this and turn this into a bigger opportunity to get other companies involved into what I guess is what you call Loop Synergies? So one question I had was, you rebranded to Loop Mission. I love the catchphrase. I think nobody likes to be rejected, not even food, and very, very catchy. How did consumers take it? So how did you how did you grow? Like, did you started to go to Whole Foods and say, we have these new products, we have these new juices, here's our mission, here's our brand, can you carry it? Did consumers immediately start buying? How did that start going?
We realized that really quickly, like retailers were really like super excited by the project because they see food waste at their own level. They see food waste in grocery stores every day. So when we came and we talked about the project, they really wanted to be part of it. They really wanted to be part of the solution and to like, because when we started, everybody was like, don't make a juice. There is so many juice out there. There is no market for it. And even like the buyers from grocery stores, when we contacted them at first, just on the phone really quickly, they were like, oh, you want to sell me a juice? No, I have like plenty of juices, like no thanks. But as soon as we started to talk about the mission, they were really interested because there is like, of course, they also want to find a solution to food waste. And by working together, we can also set targets together of how much food that we can save just by selling these products in this retailer. So that part was super easy from the beginning, and it was actually a really good argument for us. And this is really the way that we got our place, or that we really grew quickly, was the fact that retailers really love the mission, and consumers, like as I told you at the beginning, it was really for us something super scary because we were like about the marketing about food waste has always been about the premiumness. If you look at any type of product, even though when it's absolutely not true, they will say like, this is the best potato that's been like handpicked and harvested in like this special mountain, or I don't know. It's always about like how premium it is. And we're like, okay, we're gonna say completely the opposite, and we're gonna say to consumers, okay, this product is made with discarded food. Are they gonna want to buy that? And we took the bet of trusting that consumers are smart enough to understand and to be the one that would educate if they weren't educated enough about this issue. So we decided to make that like our battle to really like educate consumers, to ensure like people understand that what we use isn't food that is like with mold or anything. It's really, there is a lot of food that is rejected for wrongful reasons, or just because they don't have the proper shape, size, or just because there is too much on the market. There is too many of a specific product on the market right now, or just the whole cycle of distribution. And that's something that some consumers don't know. It takes 2 to 3 weeks from the moment it leaves the distribution centers to be really like consumed, because the time that the product goes from distributors to the distribution center of the retailer, and then the retailer send it to like every single stores, and then the time that the stores put it on the shelves, and us as a consumers, when we buy it, want it to be good to 4 to 5 days in our fridge. So all this cycle takes 2 to 3 weeks, meaning that when food is ready to be consumed, or is going to be ready to be consumed in 4 or 5 days, it's already too late. And this is something that we really wanted to educate consumers about. And like, okay, we're going to explain what is really why we throw away food, and what is the food that we reuse. And we got a really, really positive feedback. And we realized that consumers, like, it's true, they're smart enough, they're educated, and when they're not, they want to know more, they ask questions. And we were super happy because we realized that this is what made us that's what created the success of Loop mission. We would never have the success we had without that mission, and that consumers were a big part in spreading the message. We didn't have to invest in like billboards or media coverage or anything like that, because we were selling more than a product. We were selling a mission, something bigger than just a juice. And because of that, people would share about it on social media. People would help us spread that word out there, so that we got really, really good feedbacks from consumers, and that was really a game changer for us. That's what made the success of Loop.
Yeah. And how many, I guess, retail locations are you in now in, I guess, Canada or North America?
Right now we're coast to coast in Canada, and I think we're about 3,500 stores. And we're just launching in the US. We just got listed at Sprouts nationally, so it's a bit. I think it's 300 something stores. So that's huge for us. Like starting in the U.S. market, and also we have a few independents also starting. So it's definitely a territory that I think it's gonna grow really fast.
Yeah. And so when you get your supply side, are you getting it from the retailers as well, or are you typically getting it from the distributors where they have leftover, they can't distribute it out, maybe they have too much, the demand's not there from the retail side, or are you getting it for both?
Uh, Both or everybody basically. When we started, it was really with distributors, but then we got a place that we had so much volume that we needed to explore other options, and then we also got all these phone calls. So now we work with many distributors, but also retailers and also farmers. We have a lot of farmers when it's I don't know, strawberry season. We had an example like a couple of years ago. A strawberry farmer called us because there was a big storm in his field with a lot of hail, and that created a lot of yellow dots on its strawberries, but they were still like perfect for consumption, but they were like the aesthetic was less appealing. So we rescued all these strawberries. We could find a way. So we have a lot of farmers that we work with. We work with a celery farmer also, that because the celery is like there is a lot of branches all around the celery itself that are just thrown away on the field. So we decided to make a partnership with this farmer where we added bins directly in the field that we can take all the leftover branches and we can juice this into a celery juice. So now we work with different types of suppliers.
And so in that scenario, would you start to create a new product line or a new flavor for retail, or do you just say we'll take it, we'll work with either Loop Mission to create a product line with this, or we potentially will take this and put this under Loop Synergies as an ingredients? How does that process work?
We look at what's available, what they have available all year long, and then we see what we currently use in our projects that we can save with these new partners. And then sometimes we develop products specifically with what they have in overstock, and it can be like an exclusive product, a seasonal product, but it really depends on the partnership. But one of the example we had was the smoothies that we developed with Sobeys. So Sobeys called us saying that they had a lot of overstock in their warehouses. We looked at the data and we saw that there was a lot of like fruits that were super interesting for smoothies. At that time, we didn't have any smoothies, so we really developed smoothies that were exclusive to Sobeys, that were really based on what they have in overstock, and we started that partnership together. So this was one of the example of what we could do. Like when the celery farmer called us, we decided to launch an easy peasy juice, which is our juice that is only celery and lemon. Because at the same moment that he called us, there was this huge, I don't know if it was 2 years ago, there
Yeah.
was this shortage on the celery on the market, because I know some celebrity told people that they should drink celery juice in the morning, and you couldn't buy celery on the market. And it was an issue for us because at that moment, there was no more celery rejected on the market. Like there was nowhere we could find celeries, and our model isn't built that way. So we're like, okay, what are we gonna do with our juices that has celery in it? And luckily, at the same moment, the supplier called us, and we decided to launch these juices just with that partnership. So it's every time someone calls us, we look at ways that we can either use it in something we already have, or if we can create something, a new product, or just a specific juice is exclusive to them.
Yeah, and so lots of different products. You have Loop Synergies where you're investing a lot of energy into from the ingredient sides to get a larger kind of impact. What's next for Loop Mission? Like, what's your overall kind of strategy? How does this, maybe even correlate with climate change and just sustainability and the whole like what's the ambitions and the goals into the future for Loop Mission?
Our vision since day one is to be a multinational all around the world. So I would say this is our next big step, is to replicate the model all around the world. And this is what we're figuring out right now is the right way to do it, because it's crazy. We also get phone calls from people in so many different countries all around the world saying that they throw away also a lot of food, because it's a global problem, food waste. So we need to ensure that we don't necessarily just produce here in Montreal and then we ship all these products around the world. We really want to have an impact locally. So our vision is to really like build factories in new places around the world to ensure that we can replicate the model and that we can also adapt the recipes based on what's available in these countries. So we're currently looking at Europe, that we found partners, like both partners for the manufacturing part, but also for the supply part. So we're looking for like retailers or distributors that throw away a lot of food. So we already found these partners in Europe, in southern, southwest USA. We're also looking at Australia. So it's really the next big step is to expand. But we're looking at like how we can do that. In like, is it really like we build a new factory over there, we work with co-manufacturing, and we know we didn't have a good experience with that when we started here, so we learned a lot from it, but it's a lot of investment at the same time. So it's all these questions that we're asking ourselves, is the way to replicate the model all around the world.
Yeah, and you funded it originally. You mentioned you got a grant from the government, and how are you doing that now? Is that through operations, or is it through bank funding, or is it through private lending investments like VC? How do you expand globally and do that from financial side?
Different ways. When we started, it was really just a bit of money that we had aside that from selling some stuff. But then we grew from like the fact that like we're selling our products, but we had a lot of support also from federal and provincial government because of our mission, also because of being in the food industry. So we had a few grants, a few also loans with like really good conditions. So we found a few banks that could finance the project. And more recently, our partner in the project, which is Courchin Larose, the major produce distributors that is part of the projects with us since day one, they invested in our last round of investment. We started the round looking for outside partners, but at the same time, we had such an amazing relationship, and the team is just the synergy is perfect between like the three partners that we are in this project. So we were kind of hesitant of bringing someone else in the project, and at the same time they really believe in, so they decided to invest themselves and to fund the next investment round. But we know that with all these ambitions we have of growing and going nationally, internationally, we're gonna have to go for a new financial round. We're probably gonna start it in the next fall. Yeah, we're probably gonna have to do that soon.
Yeah, well, it's you have big ambitions, and it's obviously an incredible mission that you're building. We're getting kind of close to the end of our time, so I just had one kind of last question for you. The podcast, the name and everything was actually inspired by the book The Lorax. It's one I read to my boys, and one that I just love because it's just overuse of our resources and simple. A child with a seed can change the outcome, and so. What do you think people or businesses can do as a first step towards, sustainability or climate change to better our planet? There's obviously a lot going on when it comes to our climate, and it seems like we don't have a ton of time. So, what's your thoughts on what people can do?
That may sound a bit cliche, but I'll say vote with your dollars. Just because it's such a strong tool. It's so powerful. Like, because businesses, they spend billions of dollars to try to understand what consumers want. They really look at data of like, what is the trend, what do consumers want, and they will adapt and they will listen as soon as like consumers know what is really what consumers want, and if it's sustainability that people want, if it's more sustainable packaging, if it's products that are more local or that have a true mission. This is what's going to sell, and it's what the industry will adapt and will implement projects like that, and they will change their packaging or they will change their ingredient list. Let's look at, for example, Nutella that removed the palm oil from its product because consumers were talking about it for years and asking for a more sustainable alternative. And so the industry will adapt if consumers want it and consumers are willing to put its dollar where they truly believe in, and that they vote with these dollars. And I also will say that as a consumer, I think also have a good responsibility, or we need to get educated about these issues, and we need to know more, like what is really sustainable, because sometimes what we think is more sustainable isn't really. So it brings the industry in the wrong direction. So there's a lot of examples with like compostable packaging, for example, that is a whole topic in itself, but it's actually not a better solution in terms of environment if you look at the life cycle assessments of these packaging. But because consumers think it is, they ask for it, and because of that, all the industry is going in that direction, but it's not necessarily a good path. So it's important that I think we really do our homeworks and that we know what is really the more sustainable, what is the good option, so we can bring the industry in the right direction.
Yeah, vote with your dollars is it is a great statement. I think there's, sometimes people will say, well, consumerism is what caused a lot of this, and I don't think that's not the statement. The statement is that put the pressure, buy the things that you want, put the pressure on the companies to realize that this is what consumers want. It's not to say that we need to purchase lots more things. We don't need 100 shirts, but when you do buy your clothing and you buy your shirts or you buy your food, vote with your dollars so that you understand that you're giving confidence to companies like yourselves to invest and to share the story and to build this mission. And you're doing things like Nutella, like you said, to get rid of palm oil. So I do love that statement. Well, I wanted to say thank you for joining us on the show today. I love what you've done. Congratulations to yourself and your co-founder David and everybody on the team of what you're building. I'm excited to continue to see Loop Mission in retails and hopefully Loop Synergies continues to grow. And we got a lot of food waste and we have a lot of stuff to do. And obviously Loop Mission is having a big impact in that. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
This podcast is co-produced with The Brand is Female. I hope you've enjoyed today's episode of Someone Like You. And if you did, please share this. We're a new podcast, and I would love it if you could share it with a family member, friend, colleague, work colleague. Share it on Slack, whoever you do. Just share and spread the message of these incredible brands. Please also support these type of companies. They're doing the hard thing, and the hard thing often takes a lot of people to get on board. And don't forget, please subscribe on the platform of your choice and give us a rating and review. I'm Marco Pimentel. Thank you for joining us today. For more information on Someone Like You, you can find us on Instagram at Someone Like You Podcast with all the links to the podcast, our website, and more information about the brands that we feature. Thank you again.